Hello, everyone. This is the chat about everything. This is three blokes shooting the breeze about all sorts of subjects, everything and all things. One spiritual, one nihilist, and one Christian. So that gives us a good basis for conversations. If you like what we do, follow along, give us a comment. La la la. Today we are talking about, do we treat the elderly with dignity? That's our question, basis for our conversation. Do we treat the elderly with dignity? And I've got to say straight from the top, lads, the definition of dignity, what does dignity mean? I kind of
Yeah,
know.
I
Right.
was going to ask that as well.
Okay. I suppose it's. Do you want to know that? I would guess and respect.
Yeah, the question,
Wait,
do we treat the
A bit
elderly
more
with
than respect
respect?
is
Yeah.
is the yeah. Is it, no, I suppose it's.
Do we treat them as individuals? Do we treat them with dignity? Do we treat them with respect? Wow. I mean, it depends what culture you're from, doesn't it, right? Because
Okay. The state of quality of being worthy of honor, respect, and ethical treatment.
right, worthy of honor and respect and ethical treatment.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
Does that make sense to you?
it does. Yeah. I don't think we give enough dignity to our elderly in this country. I think our care system is a little bit broken for the elderly. I think that after, 7 decades of service to, I don't know, industry, community, others, whatever they've done for their lives. I think sometimes I'm left with the feeling that we leave our old people on the rubbish heap a little bit, and we don't treat them very well. And I think there's a massive amount of loneliness amongst the elderly. Um, And what is elderly anyway? Because our young people, if you ask a young person, anybody over like 35 is old.
I would say I would say 70 and up is
Okay.
elderly, personally.
Yeah, that's definitely elderly, isn't it? Especially these days when people are living longer and having health and fitness for a lot longer of their life. I mean, you know, I'm not going to reveal how old I am. I had my 33rd birthday the other week. But in previous years and decades or another life, I probably would have been approaching kind of retirement age. But that doesn't necessarily make you elderly, does it, when you retire? I think 70 is probably 65, 70 in my
I
book.
guess everyone would have a different idea of that as well.
Who would?
Well, I guess it's pretty subjective, but maybe 65, 70 is like maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think over 50s. I think once you're over 50,
Um,
yeah, you are officially old, I think.
Yeah, you can apply for things like Saga, can't you? And
What
special
saga?
rates on things and
What saga?
oh, it's just some sort of club, isn't it, where you get like discounted holidays for the over
Oh,
50s and things like that. So
yeah,
you
but
can't
no,
go to Club 1830 holidays anymore, can you, when you're a bit older? Um,
no.
Over 50, yeah, actually, some over 50s I see are in such poor health and are perhaps such high mileage, they do look elderly.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
they look beaten, don't they? You know, I was down the gym the other day, and some fella come up to me and he said, "How old are you?" And I was saying, "Well," I told him, and I said, "How old are you?" And he said, 53. And I looked at him, I thought, flipping heck, you've not aged well. Do you know what I mean? He had a really crinkly face, no hair. Um,
Hopefully he's not a subscriber.
so do you think you were treating him with dignity, John?
well, we, um, I think when you get to when you pass 50, for example, I think you're a bit more forgiving um, to anybody over 50. Um, because I think my sister said to me, actually, wait till you get to 40, just everything starts breaking. And I was like, oh my God, really? And she's only a couple of years older than me. And sure enough, when you get to your end of your 30s, you um, get all sorts of things going wrong with yourself. It's really it's quite worrisome, really. Um, and before you know it, that next decade goes so quickly. And then you look at people around you, 5, 10 years younger than you, or 5, 10 years older than you. Um, and that's enough for me to sort of inspire me to go and try and maintain some sort of management of my body, because some people just don't wear very well at all. But on the other hand, some people do. I saw a lady the other day. She was 67, and she was ripped. She had, six-pack tummy. She has muscles. There was no flab on there at all. I was like, wow, that's really, really, really good. But I think this question anyway, this was, I think I put this on the list, and and I often look at some of the elderly. I mean, when I say the elderly, I mean people who have retired, um, and I think um, often they look to me as forgotten. Society doesn't really um, value them at all, other than a vote, which is very sad.
I
The,
think
and certainly in the workplace, um, some people I think they write you off about when you get to about 50. They're like, no, not interested.
mm,
We want school leavers, college leavers. We don't have to pay them so much. We can whip them for the next 20 years, and then we'll just trade them in for another, another
well,
young person.
yeah.
And then so I think when you get I think, into your 30s and your 40s, yeah, I don't think you realize how vulnerable you're becoming, if you're dependent on employment.
I
Uh,
think I think employment wise, I think that's changing actually a lot. I don't think they are providing many opportunities for college leavers, university leavers. They're tending to go for late 20s, 30 somethings, who are seen as a better bet in the workplace for many reasons. But I think you're right. We don't value um, the elderly in the same way as we value youth. And I think there's a lot of things placed on youth, and there's a lot of things in the media that get us to value youth, like young pop stars, like young film stars. Um, we're kind of we're told that you are in your prime,
yeah,
at certain ages, and those tend to be the earlier years. Whereas in a lot of ways, you're in your prime, certainly for wisdom, knowledge, ability, confidence, maybe compassion.
security,
Um, what was that one?
security.
Security, all sorts of things. You're in your prime much later in life.
Yeah,
Um,
I think
uh,
when you get to about 40 or 50, you will have most definitely got your property under your belt. Some people will have probably spent the last 20 years trying to pay it off, and are close to that. They will have had at least a decade or two of commercial or relevant experience in the profession that they choose. I mean, there's a wealth of advantages in choosing somebody in their late 30s, early 40s, or even 50s. Um, but yeah, but my goes when I was looking at this, I was looking at there's a guy who used to come up. I don't I think he must have passed, but he was an old boy. And he was retired, but he was a bit of a he was an East Ender, and I always like to have a couple of minutes of a chat. All right, how you doing, me old China? Da 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 da. And he was going off. Um, and the last year, I said to him, "How are you coping with the winters?" Because I saw him in midwinter, and he was sitting on a bench outside, um, and he had like a Crombie on and a hat. Um, and he said that, I sit in the in my lounge, and I put my quilt around me, and I've turned the fire on or the heating on, and I get my. He says I've got one of those bar fires, and I was like, yeah, yeah. Well, it might have been a fan heater, I'm not sure. But he says I get dressed up and I get really warm and I wrap myself up, and then I turn the heating off and go to bed. And I was like, fucking hell, really? Oh, this guy's in his 70s and he can't afford to put the heating on through the night. And he has to go to bed dressed up with a hat and a coat in order to stay warm.
That's why it was so shocking when they took the winter fuel allowance off the old people and why there was such a
Yeah, I
kickback.
just think I was just my thoughts were, how can we there's no dignity there. There really is nothing. That guy uh, deserves his last years in life with a sort of certain amount of dignity, and there's nothing there.
Mm. I suppose a lot of it is cultural because we're in a very individualistic society in the UK and maybe in America and other places as well, maybe France, other places like that, typically Western places where um, we don't live as extended families anymore so much.
Well,
So they end up on their own.
I've touched on this in a previous one that we've done, is where the Japanese they're going into prisons because they can't afford to live independently. There's no community there for them anymore, and they're finding certainly there's a lot of women committing crime so that they can go in and then they can have 3 meals a day. They can have a bed and heating, and there's a community there, and they
Do
just don't find that,
do
and
you know
that's
what I find
bad.
astonishing about that is that that example is from a culture where there is more community, there is more collective living, there is more extended kind of like there used to be certainly a reverence towards older people and elderly people in society because they've got a place and they were
Yeah.
looked after.
Yes.
So to see that breaking down in one of those cultures is really dangerous sign for the whole of the world, I think, because it's mostly
Well,
Southeast Asian and other places like Korea and China and maybe not so much China anymore. India, other places where you live in multi-generational settings. So therefore, you don't just end up on your own, or you don't end up in a care home for by yourself either. You know, where you're seen as well, you're here because you're old and you're waiting for God, rather than or whoever your maker is, rather than the life that you've lived and the things that you've contributed.
but also there was an old boy who was attacked by a group of feral children just for sport. They just went up to him and smacked him while he went down. They beat him up and left it. And I'm thinking, what really? What is
But
going on?
feral children, John, it just sounds
Children have
like they
got
were young thugs, basically,
thugs.
idiots.
Yeah,
Not feral. I mean, feral tends to mean that they're just, well, maybe they have been left
wild.
to their own
It's another
devices.
word for wild, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's disgusting. you know.
isn't it? I don't understand. Yeah, I mean, I, perhaps Henry can shed a light on why children or the youth are looking for kicks out of beating up at older people. Not that you would get involved in that, Henry. I'm not suggesting you do.
Yeah, like I'm the person to speak for these
But,
speak for the
Feral
ones.
children, yeah. You're the
Yeah.
feral children
but
spokesperson now, Henry.
that's something
Yeah, cheers, John.
I can't identify with really, as something that I've never seen any of that sort of, it didn't go on in my youth at all.
Okay,
Well, is
maybe
that
not
true?
beating. Yeah, I was just about to say, wait a second.
Did
on
we?
our estate, we got up to a lot of feral stuff.
No,
Uh,
no. But we
None
didn't
of
beat
which
up
I'm
the
going to.
elderly.
No, no, of course not. No.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. However, I don't think we looked at them with dignity or reverence either. We just thought, oh, bloody old people, and probably laughed at them. Yeah, we certainly didn't beat them up, but we got up to all sorts of things that was a bit feral and a bit wild and a bit
Well,
out of control.
yeah, children do feral stuff. I mean, I've got no, I haven't got an issue with that. It's the fact that they've taken joy in beating up an elderly person, and I just can't get my head around that. I
Mm.
don't think I've ever thought about. I may have. I remember seeing older people as I was in my teenager years, thinking, "Fuck it, I hope I die before I get young." So when I'm young, sort of stuff, and it was like, yeah, I don't really want to get there. It doesn't look good, does it? You know what I mean? And especially if you were to go in a pub and it was full of like the older folk, you were like, "What are we doing here?" You know, it's pensioners, right? You go in another pub where there's younger people. Um, but there was never an inkling. I never felt as if they were targets for abuse in any way. I'd never ever felt that way at all. Um,
That old person might have made the mistake of trying to correct youth and young
I've seen it
people.
now. I mean, I live in the town centre. I saw an old boy crossing, and I saw these kids. They are feral. And they came up to him and they started shouting with him. And I went outside and I went straight up to the old boy and I said, "Let's walk together." And we will walk, and never mentioned anything. When the kids left, I said, "Do they bother you?" And they said, "Oh yeah." I said, "It's not just this one occasion then, that they do it often." Yeah. I was like, wow.
That's bad.
It is. It's from the bottom. The kids are seeing them as a soft target, um, and as as they get older and retire, um, they're just not looked after in any way, and that's quite shocking, really. I know it's a difficult job. It's not the most. Um, a care worker for the elderly is not a job one would aspire to do.
Well, I think some people love to do that, and some people are made for that. So I don't know about that, John. But yeah,
Well, I'm just talking from, when a kid's growing up and going through, you don't hear a lot of studies in university to do that as a job. I mean, if you look at the care home industry, I'd say a lot of the people that they employ are not British. They're taking people from um, the third world to do the work because it's just not a profession that is held and it's not paid very well for a start, and it's not a sexy profession either.
Yeah,
So
it's bloody hard.
yeah.
Well, a good friend of mine actually does that, and I I actually hear some of the stuff that goes on, and it's brutal, mate. Like, dealing with getting punched, kicked, abused, and the attitude you have to go in with is like a saint. You couldn't, if you get punched in the face, you can't clobber him back, can you? Do you know what I mean?
No.
So there's an
So this
insane
person
level
that
of patience and sorry.
this person that they look after the elderly, or they sick people, or I mean, or are they both?
They work in the care home and they do care for individuals as well.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think some of the old people, they can become very belligerent and very self-righteous as well. Not everybody, not all of them, but some of them, they feel as if they're
Is it any wonder, given what we're talking about, that they
yeah,
get
exactly. It's, and I'm thinking that as I'm saying it, I'm thinking what these people are actually thinking is that they're demanding respect, and they should. And because they're not getting it, they're getting really upset about it and aggressive. Um, and the problem is that it's just a vicious circle, isn't it? Is that they're not getting it, they're getting angry. Um, and as a result, the people that are supposed to be there working for them have got no care for them at all either. It's just like
Oh, I don't know about that. I mean,
some of them have said to
individuals,
him, they
there
will
are
drug him up.
individuals who, well, there
They,
are individuals.
there's a lady, there's a lady that I work with, that goes to the gym, and she's like, she talks of how some people um, over medicate um, the elderly because they find them too hard to deal with. So instead of giving him um, one pill to ease the pain, they might give him two, and they just spend the afternoon asleep.
Well, that sounds like a whistleblowing situation to me.
Well, I've heard it recently on the news. That's what they were doing. There was a couple of people that, and that's, yeah, I don't know. It's
How have we come to that? How have we come to that? We've come to that because of all the things that we've just been talking about. That
yeah,
there's a reverence and a kind of like a price put on youth, and there's a lack of dignity, respect, and value put on elderly. There's the differences between young and old in their attitudes. There is the staff and the system that is looking after them,
mm,
which quite frankly is way, way under-resourced. And the only reason why we're taking a lot of people from elsewhere in the world to do those jobs is A, because a lot of our British people and homegrown Europeans uh, don't want to do those jobs, like you say, but also because they have come from cultures where A, the pay is better than when they're at home, and B, they're from cultures that do value those people. So, for instance, there's a lot of Filipino care workers in the elderly sector. They're amazingly caring, saintly, positive, and they send their money home to their families in the Philippines. It's just the whole system props props it all up, doesn't it? Because there's problems in certain areas and certain values held, that leaves gaps and problems in a system which get filled by other people who are willing to do it. And then we say, it's because, the system's bad because, there's a language gap between the carer and the old person or something. No, that's just a symptom of where we find ourselves because we haven't treated our old people with dignity and the respect that they need.
yeah,
It's sort of showing the fallen nature of capitalism as well, isn't it? Because, like you said, capitalism is all about getting the most out of people. Your value is what you can do. If you can't do anything anymore, you're not valuable anymore. And when your body goes and, you know, things start to fade, there's someone younger, fitter, able to do more, be better, you know, so you're not valued in the same way when that's at the center of what we do. It's all about achieving and more, better, now, faster, like, you know, so
Yeah.
naturally things do fall off for you, I guess. And
That
I
is,
think there's almost an element of getting out old is a little bit undignified in a sense, if that's the right word, because you know you might start shitting yourself and forgetting things, and you know especially as a man, I think you're you're used to being a doer in a sense, and when you can't do it anymore, it leaves you feeling like that. I think I've seen that in people I know, and it's
Yeah.
hard to watch. You know, it's sad.
Well, a friend of mine whose father he was a part of CID who he was a policeman and criminal. He wasn't a plod. He was actually going after organized crime. Um, a very stoic uh, man, and he said that he told his daughter, he says, like, don't worry about me, I'm never going to take my life. That's the coward's way out. It's like no way. It's no way to, you'll never find me doing any of that. And it turns out that he was diagnosed with Parkinson's, and he got to a point where he was needing help. And then he lived in Scotland, and she couldn't support him she said to him, look, move down here and I can support you daily. It's not a problem. And well, just before Christmas, she was told that he'd taken his own life. He hung himself in his garage. And when she went up there to sort it out, she looked um, on his search, his Google search or whatever he is used for search, and he looked at his current value of his property and the cost of residential care close to where she was living. And you can only imagine, yeah, what went through his mind. He probably thought, well, look, it won't be long before I'll need diapers and someone's going to need to change them, nappies, we call it in this country. Um, and I don't really want my daughter to be changing my underwear for me. Um, and what valuable assets I have now is going to be eaten into for this sort of care. And it could be that she's left with nothing because they will just take everything. Um, and when you can't pay, then the government will step in. And he thought, well, if I go now, this is what I'm assuming he was thinking. If I take my own life now, I'm cutting myself like 3 years short, but my daughter will get the house and everything else. She won't have to change my underwear 3 times a day. And she won't have to live the next 3 years looking after me. So isn't it just a bit unselfish of me to take my own life and give my daughter everything, the house and peace of mind and no chores of changing daddy's nappy sort of thing. And I imagine that's exactly what went through his mind, and that was the decision he made. And that's awful. That's an awful scenario to be in. And to be honest, it's something that I've considered as well. I mean, I'm thinking, when I get to that age, do I really want my family changing my underwear for me? Do I really want to spend what assets and money that I've got, for an extra month or year or something like that, considering I've had probably a good 70 odd years anyway. What's another year or two, especially with the quality of life that I'm
Just
going to
say the
have
word
in,
and I'll bring the cricket bat round, mate.
eh?
Just say the word and I'll come round with a cricket bat.
Well, I'm thinking it's not a bad way to go, really, is it? And it's I've often I suppose I'm at a stage now in my life, and I'm thinking, well, what would I do in such a scenario? Do I really, I will have, I've thought the same thoughts and thinking, that's a sensible choice to make. I don't know. What about you guys? Are you happy to spend all your monies and assets on keeping yourself alive for the last 2 or 3 years of life in order, uh, or would you go early so that whatever you've got left you can hand over to your immediate family?
I'm just struck by how that seems to be a compelling choice right now, which actually answers the whole question to
Mm.
me.
Yeah.
That's kind of like if that's what we're faced with as choices,
Mm,
or some people have actually, completed suicide because of that as a decision.
mm,
Like that says a lot about how we treat being old with dignity,
mm,
not just as individuals, but as a society, as a culture, and as the systems that are in it. I think Henry's like hit the nail on the head with it being a product of a capitalist system because
mm.
there's nothing social about it, is there? Because if it's a capitalist system, you don't matter, but profits do. So
Yes.
therefore, um, at some point, you spend your whole life accumulating money and assets and things to provide independence and security. And at some point, you might have to make the choice that you have to trade that in order to have the latter years of your life and pay the price of the care that you require.
Mm,
But aging, I think Henry said this, aging can be for some people a bit undignified because, if your physical system is degrading in such an extent that you need real help getting in and out of a chair, a bath, a shower, somebody to change your underwear or help you wipe yourself and clean yourself, then you've lost your independence.
you've lost your dignity as well, haven't
Yeah, well, that's how we see it, isn't it? But actually, if we see it as like that is part of the process, and allow other people to care for us in a non-profitized way, it might be a lot more dignified. So when you're dependent on other people to help you,
you?
you lack choice, you lack independence. You are at the mercy of those looking after you.
Mm,
So if somebody chooses, well, you're a silly old guy or a silly old bat, and you need to be medicated more than you are, but just to shut you up and make you more compliant, which is an awful thing,
yeah,
um, then that you've lost your independence. You're at the mercy of those people, aren't you?
yeah.
That is horrible. The whole costs and asset thing is a different debate as well, isn't it? Because once you're in a position where you are independent and but then you're starting to get older, you will either need those assets and that money to pay for your care at some point, or you die and the state gets a large chunk of it, or you make arrangements so that your descendants, get a large chunk of it, if you have got descendants, because you may not have children. The whole thing is awful, I think, and undignified for those people in that situation. And we can only do our best, but we're at the mercy of a capitalist and not a social approach.
And the problem is getting worse because the more educated people become, it would appear that less children are born, and as a result, there's not enough to tax. to pay for the help the pensioners require.
Yeah.
Um,
We're an aging population in the West, aren't we?
yeah,
And less people are being born. Yeah, you're right.
and
That's an
that's
interesting correlation you made there, though, John. As we're getting more intelligent,
yeah.
doesn't seem like we're getting more intelligent, does it? Like,
Well, yeah, no, it's
No, if we're losing our traditional values of looking after people until they pass, then we're definitely not, that's not intelligent, is it? That's not an intelligent system. It's one that makes people suffer, and it's also one that profits from that suffering, and that's awful.
and I do wonder actually if this might sound a little bit conspiratorial, that there is eh, that the government and big pharma are working hand in hand in order to kill off the older folk because it's a noose around their necks and it's only getting bigger. So if they can kill off the older people sooner rather than later, then they'll have more money. Um,
isn't that what COVID was?
well,
Well, actually, I'm not sure we can talk about that. That doesn't
and
that prove it?
but there's another one come out. The flour in this country where is going to be fortified with vitamin B9, which was supposed to be folic acid, but it's not the same. It's a chemical substitute, and it turns out that your men are 3 times more likely to get cancer, prostate cancer, with this substitute folic acid, and it's going to be introduced to flour in the UK. Um, uh, well, I think it was, they said June, by the end of June this month. Um, so yeah, you mentioned the pandemic and whether that was a way to kill off people, and now they're introducing other things that are going to be detrimental to your health as well. I mean, men tend to get prostate issues from their late 50s onwards. So if they can, I don't know, if they can sort of, well, it does sound a little bit strange that conspiratorial that, we're trying to kill off the older folk, but it does, you can't help but think that, can you?
Certainly seems that way.
Do you know what I mean? I, what a great example. If you could just, you know, cut the aging population by 50%, that would be a huge amount of money.
I feel the need, yeah, I hear the argument. I see it, and it does look like it seems that way for sure. I feel the need to kind of flip this a little bit, to kind of have a look at, what does being elderly mean? And to me, it's a privilege to get there, because not everybody does.
Yeah.
Not everybody makes it. And every wrinkle on a skin tells a
Puzzle.
story,
Yeah.
you know. Every old person behind there has been a very long life of whatever they've been up to, some sad, some positive, some mixed, and I think it's the stories and the life behind the person, but also the person and their life that we need to treat with dignity. Everybody deserves to be treated with dignity, don't they? Nobody, um, I mean, even the worst human beings who have committed the worst sins and violations and perhaps crimes
Yeah.
still in my book
Yeah.
should be treated with some dignity, even if they're incarcerated and locked away for the rest of their life,
Yeah.
And so I'm I feel the need to kind of like flip this to looking at the positives around getting old and being elderly and us looking at the dignity that they deserve. Because yes,
But
we're
they're
in a
not getting.
that they're not getting no, and we've made that really clear, haven't we? That the
Yeah.
system is such that even people will even make the choice to end their lives. I mean, that's what
But I
a
can't
lot.
see that there is a positive, Tim, unfortunately. It was a quite a depressive thought, actually, when you look around and you see what happens in the workplace and you see what happens in the care homes, and you talk to people that are in need of basic stuff like heating, and food, people that may have to make a decision between food and heating. It's just
I know that's sad, but you're going back into the negatives of the system and how that treats people with in an indignified way. But
is
what
there
I'm
any are there any
Yeah,
positives?
Yeah,
yes.
there are.
So a long life, sorry, I'll let you talk in a second, Henry, but a long life means that you've got experience to share with younger people. So in the workplace, a lot of that knowledge and wisdom can be handed down. When
Yeah.
not even in the workplace, if they're people who are lonely and separated from the rest of community, there are small projects which are make utter sense, like
No, no,
taking
I agree.
young people into care homes to have chats with older people because there's stuff we can learn from each other. Those are the positives I'd like to
Yeah,
talk about.
no,
Go
no,
on,
yeah.
Henry.
But on the whole, they are so, I mean, they're great and we should do more of it, but they don't really have they're quite insignificant, aren't they?
Because the capitalist system says we don't matter. But if we were to, and we accept that, whereas if we say that is not acceptable, that is not the way we should be doing it, we should treat elderly with dignity, then we create a system that does make that matter. Sorry, Henry, you were getting in.
Yeah,
No,
go
that's
on,
all
Henry.
right. The thing is, I think we can talk about the positives or the negatives, and it's easy to point out a whole load of negatives in this fallen world because they're everywhere, of course. But there, like I said, there is an element of it does become a little bit undignified, if you like, especially when you've done so much in your life and you've been independent, and then you lose all of that. As a child, when you're fairly undignified as well, you don't feel it, do you? Because
No,
you haven't got all that
you're
conditioning
sport
and
abused.
expectations and all these things.
Yeah.
So it's hard to feel like you're going backwards, I guess, but it's an essential part of life. Like I live with my nan and granddad, and they always say to me, "Don't get old," and I'll respond, it's better than not getting old, as they're struggling to
They
put
say
their
don't
socks
get
on.
old.
Yeah, yeah, it's just a saying they say. They'll be struggling to do something like. I don't know, granddad will, take 5 minutes to get his socks on and he's groaning, and he'll say, "Oh, don't get old, H." And I'll say, "Well, hopefully I do."
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah, we just see it as a bad thing, don't we, growing old? But actually, you come into the world dependent on others. You come into the world shitting and pissing yourself and being fed. And some of us will go out that way. And if you think about it as a plant or a flower or a tree, there is a time when it's blooming and is like full of vitality, um, but it struggles to get there, and then it will die off. It's just part of the natural process, isn't it? And
Yeah.
that's a dignified thing if you see it in that way.
Yeah. And I think we're all children in the eyes of God, We have this idea that we get older and we learn and we become mature, but I think we all die not knowing a whole load of stuff and we can never figure it out. So we're all children in some sense.
But if we take outside of the humans, if we look at animals, we are much more dignified in caring for an animal than we are ourselves. If we know that an animal is going to struggle, then a vet will say, well, listen, they're not going to make it. they can struggle for the next 2 or 3 weeks, and it's not going to be very nice for them. Or they can just go to sleep nicely now. What would you prefer? And a lot of animal owners will not want their pets to suffer. And
I
then,
don't think you can compare humans and animals at all. I
oh
don't think
gosh, why not?
we're just totally different.
No, no.
We're
They're
we're just
sentient
operating on
beings. No, no,
we're
no.
operating on different levels. That's
No,
like,
I can't agree with that, Henry. They are sentient. They are,
so where do you draw the line then? A fly? Is a dog and a fly the same? Is a horse and a dolphin the same?
well,
Like,
they are sentient beings.
but where do you draw the line? Would you say that about a fly?
Um, I try not to kill flies. I've got a fly net up at the window.
Do you treat flies with dignity?
Well, I don't like the fact that they come in and buzz all over everywhere around it because they'll go down the toilet and they'll stick their tube down and they'll saliva down it and suck it back up and then they'll come over and they'll go on my coffee cup and do exactly the same there. It's not very nice.
So that was a long way of telling me that you kill them, right?
So I put a net up to stop
Yeah.
them from doing it. And
All
it's
right.
not
So
that I go around with DDT and I kill it. Um, you know,
no, you're right though, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I put up fly traps in the kitchen in summer sometimes because they're annoying and you don't want them landing on your food and
that's
throwing up on it and all that stuff. But then there's a cat that comes and shits in the garden, you know, and
yeah.
I pick the poo. I don't set a cat trap and fucking slit his throat. And you know what I mean?
Why not though? Well, you've made it. You made that the
I'm
assumption. You
I
made
make
a distinction that humans are deserving of uh, less
no,
a
not
different. I don't know. I showed you an animal, a dog, a pet that was given and the owner gave it a dignified way out of life. And that was,
dignified to who though?
well,
Like, does
it
the
was,
dog see it like that?
the owner clearly didn't want their pet to suffer.
And that's a good thing. But the
So
dog doesn't
they
give a
said,
shit.
listen, I don't want Jack for have the next 3 weeks suffering. I can fill him full of drugs and he'll be shitting everywhere and he won't be able to walk properly. But I can't, there's going to be Mary and Joe. Joe will say, right, okay, I think it's probably best he goes now in his sleep. We'll say goodbyes and happy days. And then Mary will go, I can't do that. I love him. And da da da. And you think, well, Mary hasn't got the gumption to let the animal go in its sleep because she may feel as if it would she's killed the animal. Where Jack, he thinks, well, it's a more dignified way. I remember Jack when he was bouncing up and down and he was a happy dog. I hate to see him in the pain he is at the moment, and I don't want to see another 2 weeks of him looking at me with those sad eyes. I'd
Mm.
rather say good night and thanks very much, and we'll see you on the other side. I mean, for me, I I think that we should offer the same dignity to humans as well, and
I much value human dignity over any animal by a mile. Like we had to make a similar decision recently with our dog, and we put her down, and it was a hard decision because we knew that the rest of our life was going to be a lot worse. She was going to have to lose a leg, and she was a very happy, energetic dog. And we said, you know what, we're not going to put her through it.
yeah,
And dog, mate, I'm not even funny. I used to watch her munch on horse shit.
yeah.
Like dogs are not dignified in any way. Do you know what I mean? They shit on the floor. They'll lick other dogs' asses. Like they're animals. And to compare a human life and an animal life,
Hey,
it's
look,
worlds
Henry,
apart for me.
we kill each other. We'll
Yeah,
kill it, we'll kill each other. Dogs
and I
don't
don't
kill
agree
each
with that
other.
either,
Dogs don't kill each other. We do.
mate.
We,
My
we kill
dogs
each other because we don't follow the same religion.
dogs don't kill each other.
No,
They do, of course they
not
do.
generally.
My mum's dog got attacked on the beach a few days ago. A fucking dog got him round the neck, nearly killed him, mate.
Right. There's a lot of
Fucking
feral
bit
shit.
his neck. His neck's all pissing blood, and
Well,
that was unprovoked.
I've been
Just
in parts.
randomly, the dog went up to him, fucking got him right around the neck.
Yeah, but there's always a bad apple. I mean, I throughout the world, you can see all these feral animals, you know, and especially dogs and cats. Um, but they go around in packs, and they're generally pretty good with one another, you know.
Mate, said with love, but I can prove you wrong right now. I
No, no,
really can. Like,
I'm not saying that they're 100% better. I'm sure they do fight. They do
sure,
fight, you
yeah.
know. And it comes down to the owner, I think, a lot of the time, if they're not trained properly or they've trained in a specific manner, yeah, or if they're whipped and caged and they're not, kept properly. Not all. It's like I, to a certain extent, a lot of children are like that. If that, you can see a child that's been brought up by some parents that really don't have not had a care for that child, and others that have been loved and cared for. The difference is huge. Um, we've gone down the rabbit hole here, haven't we? But what I'm saying is that if we can treat animals in a dignified way, I think that we should be doing the same for humans as well. And I don't think a lot of the time we're treating humans in a dignified way. And
I
it's
think there's a lot of things you could point at where you could say we do and we don't for any species whatsoever. We eat every animal that exists ever. And we do awful things to all kinds of beings in all kinds of ways. And also, we do amazing things for all kinds of beings in all kinds of ways. And we can find evidence for all of that. I
yeah,
definitely don't think, oh, we love and treat animals with respect and we hate all people and fuck them over in every sense. I think that's a bit off, to be
but
honest.
no, I agree. I mean, when you're saying that, there are. I mean, I mean, certainly when we wash ourselves with shampoos, they're tested on animals um, so that we don't get any sort of skin irritation. We test it on an animal first, and if the animal has a problem, then they sort it out and they take another animal, and so yeah, we use animals on it for experiments so that nothing bad happens to ourselves. And I mean,
Would you rather we use old people?
no. But there is a case for that we don't treat animals properly as well, and I can understand that. I understand, and I know why people are vegetarian. Is that sometimes the way that we keep animals to eat is not a very nice thing. Um,
Quite undignified, one might
it
say.
is very undignified for the animal. We would much rather them see it be free range and yeah, so I can understand that.
The very fact that, so I've been quite quiet here because I've been here with my popcorn, just kind of like watching this very entertaining interaction, and it's cool. But the very fact that we are making the analogy between how we treat animals with dignity and elderly people with dignity just says it all for me. It just says,
Yeah.
no, we do not treat them with dignity. And if we
Animals
go
all
back to
do.
the word, what dignity means, it's whether they're worthy, whether we're showing them honor. What was the other things? Whether it's ethical, none of which are showing up in your conversation here, I don't think. It's kind of like,
Worthy of the respect and ethical treatment. Yeah.
okay. And also, it's pointing me to the fact that a lot of this is born in our thoughts about and our relationship with the subject, right? As a human. So a lot of it is what we think, particularly when you're coming to euthanasia and animals who we think may be suffering, or we think it might be better for, or we think, is much better because then we don't suffer as much because we're not seeing them suffer.
Mm.
And it feels like there's like a correlation and a parallel between how we treat some old people as well, which is quite disgusting.
Yeah,
That's a
no,
bit of a
totally.
mic drop, isn't it?
Well,
Yeah,
what, yeah, we're disgusting. There is a parallel. I mean,
It what's disgusting is how we're kind of like treating some elderly people
yeah,
like we are not useful or annoying animals or suffering animals in some way. It's just not right. The place in Switzerland is called Dignitas, isn't it? And because it helps people um, have a dignified end.
uh,
Um, and I suppose in some way, and this is a massive conversation in itself, in some way we're saying everybody's worthy of choosing the end. Everybody should have be honored that they can make that choice, and we provide an ethical kind of like end to their life. But oh, isn't it just based on the fact that we don't like to suffer and we'll do anything to not have suffering? And part of life is suffering.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, and if you were to be complicit in helping a loved one do that, you could go to prison, couldn't you, for, helping them to be euthanized? Is that the word?
Mm.
yeah. Well, there was a guy in Canada who's just recently been nicked actually because he was supplying chemicals in order for people to take their own lives, and the chemicals were legal to buy. There was no, and they've been shipping them all over all over the world, all over the world. He wasn't making a great deal of money out of it, very little, in fact. But what he felt as if there was he was helping people make that choice. So I don't know. I think we've stemmed from, but I don't know. It all comes down to the same thing: is that a dignified life, whether it be whether you're handicapped or you're old or it or whether you're human or not. I mean, where shouldn't every sentient being have the right to a dignified life?
Yes, that's every life is worthy of honor and ethical treatment.
Yeah,
But we don't do that, do we?
no. We say, you know, um, because you're old, you're not worthy of keeping warm in the winter. This animal, there's plenty of them, so we'll eat them. Well, we'll harvest them and eat them. And this animal, they're expendable as well, and we'll test our drugs on them. Um, and yeah, we live in a bit of a mess. We have the God-given right to do that, do we?
It's a bit of a pickle, isn't it? We strive to treat elderly with dignity, but on a societal level,
When they can't
collectively,
afford it, then we won't, will we? It's just,
collectively, we frequently fall short.
yeah,
And lots of caregivers and healthcare professionals try to prioritize respect and independence, but systemic issues like ageism, like I pointed out earlier,
yeah,
underfunding of the care systems,
yeah,
and disempowering kind of healthcare routines often undermine those elderly people and their autonomy and their self-worth, actually.
yeah.
So I think I'm leaning on a no, we don't treat the
No,
elderly with dignity.
but okay, I think we all agree that we don't, uh, to greater and less degree. But is there a solution to that? Is do, or do you think that we are inherently just um, we're not as caring as that we think we are? We're
I think
selective.
everything comes back to an individual level, right? Like we're talking about the masses making everything broad, but you can only ever focus on yourself, make decisions for yourself. I can't control what anyone else does. And from my personal view, like I would like to think that I treat older people with dignity. You know, if I'm driving behind someone that's really slow, you think, okay, it's maybe an old person, a little bit more forgiving rather than tailgating them the whole way and fucking beeping them and all sorts of shit. And if they're crossing the road and they're a bit slow, not speeding up and do you know like just showing old people a bit of grace, a bit of love. And I think there is a lot of examples that we haven't touched on where we do treat old people with dignity and we do care for them. And like
Yeah.
my friend who is a carer, cares for old people, he's definitely not getting treated with respect by some of the people he's caring for, but it's nothing but love and respect from him to them, whether they're he'll go to places and they've shut up the wall and he doesn't say to them, "Oh, you dirty bastard," he cleans it up and checks all right and makes them a cup of tea, you know what I mean? And,
I'm
like
not
there
sure
is
he does that, H. I'm
he,
sure
he,
he goes, you dirty bastard. He won't say it, but in there he's going, you dirty
maybe,
bastard.
maybe, but we have been it's been a lot of negatives and I would like to think there are some positives.
No,
Even things like
I think on an individual level we are caring, but when it comes to um uh certainly if we haven't got the money to, then we won't. Yeah, we would we don't want to spend the money on it because we've got other priorities.
Yeah.
And that's and it comes down to I would imagine that it will be like a lot of people won't look after their parents in the West because that means that someone's got to stay home and do it, and someone's got to be the breadwinner, and they can't afford to do it. So, they rather than um, downscale their lifestyle, they want to maintain that lifestyle. Um, and put the elderly in a home and pay for it. Um,
well, a really awfully dark thought that I've just had is this is already a problem, right? The financial side of getting old, needing to care, etc.
yeah.
Baby boomers hold the large majority of wealth, property, assets, and obviously when a lot of them die, a lot of that is going to go back to the state, into the government, etc.
Mm.
My generation is struggling financially more than anyone in recent history, struggling to buy homes. Um, so when we're old, how is that going to look for us? It doesn't seem like it's going to be any better.
Well,
Um,
no, the thing is, really, for your generation, well, I don't know, it might have done certainly our generation, Gen X's, for example, there's not enough of the younger generation to support us properly. So it's going to, the lights, unless we've got the financial means, we're going to be subjected to this undignified end. That's for sure. But if we, and it can't, it's also, this is why I'm fairly sure that the likes of Keir Starmer and they want open borders so that they can have more and more people come in, pay more and more tax, so that they can cover their overheads, because the working population is not covering the overheads, so they need more people coming in, and so that's why the likes of the European community and the likes of our current Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, wants open borders, is because they need a bigger workforce in order to pay the bills. And I understand that. And that is a dilemma.
It's a
Um,
massive dilemma when you've got a capitalist system where you don't matter, but profit does. And I came across something yesterday. I don't quite have the full details, but it was suggesting that the Dutch government are going to be taxing assets that people have. like in situ, like not even when they buy and sell them, but when they've got them. So, for instance, if you've got, I don't know, a classic car
Yeah,
sat in your garage
yeah.
and it's gone up, they will tax you on
Well,
the
asset value.
estimated, like, yeah, and but not only once, they'll do that repeatedly. So what that will mean going
As an
forward,
annual tax.
it will mean that people have to start selling stuff in order to afford the taxes or avoid the taxes. So it's going to kind of push the money somewhere else. And I think what you've just outlined there, John, I think is a dilemma for not only the UK, but a lot of the countries
Yeah.
in the West. And I think they're going to start moving towards stuff like that. So I'd like to see us like scrap the whole thing right now, to be honest, and move to a more socialist system where we all collectively own all of the assets, and then we can avoid all this crap, and people don't have to make a choice to kill themselves or make a choice to sell their homes or whatever.
Mm. The
So then,
trouble is, though, there's never been a socialist movement that's shown to be effective.
that's because they've always been thwarted by people who are driving at power, profit, and greed.
Russia, I mean, I don't know, but I mean, how long do you give a society in order to show that it works?
Doesn't mean to say that it can't work. I
No,
think we all know
but there
we're
is
all
no,
awake to the fact that the system that we've built and that the have inherited doesn't quite work and will never really help us, especially in subjects like this that we're talking about.
yeah.
So why not pull the rug on it and start afresh?
Well, yeah, yeah, yeah. I think, and also, I mean, we could look at universal basic income that everybody yeah, yeah, just gets given a house, yeah, a house, well, somewhere to live and money to survive. But how's that going to work out? I mean, the thing is, they are considering it now because,
But that's just a way of keeping us locked in a system of their making. What I'm talking about is a system of our making.
well, it's not just that. I mean, anybody. The thing is, with that universal basic income, it just means that everybody gets a standard living, a living standard, standard living standard. Um, but it's not. It won't stop the entrepreneurs from doing what they're doing. If you want to top that up by going out and sweeping somebody else's driving, they're going to give you £10 so that you can go down and have a few drinks in the pub. Then fair enough. That won't ever stop. But the people are considering this because of the way that AI is changing the workplace as well. In the past we were looking at professions like accountancies and things like that. You don't need accountants anymore. You just need an algorithm, an AI algorithm. It'll do it for you. So there's a lot of people are going to be without a job. Um, and it's not just accountants. There's many professions that AI is going to take over, and it's going to leave it. There will be a dilemma. There will be a dilemma. What do you do with all these people? Then it's not just the elderly that are won't be able to work. There's going to be a generation of people coming through that there's not going to be a work. I mean, how many plumbers are you going to need? Once you've got, at the moment, it's a profitable industry to be to a sparky or a plumber. But now that there are people now that work as accountancies, or they've done accountancy, or they've studied a rocket propulsion and stuff like that. AI can do all that. So, once they're not going to be needed. So they're going to be going, oh, well, I'm going to give up my studies as a rocket propulsion engineer and I'm going to be a Sparky. Now, uh, there may be like a dozen or 2 dozen that look after your local town. When AI kicks in, there's not going to be 1 or 2 dozen. There's going to be 100, and then they're going to fight for the business, and the prices are going to drop, and all of a sudden they're going to be on the basic wage as well. There's nobody going to be earning any money, you know.
Yeah, I don't believe in that narrative that AI is going to take everyone's job and all this. Like already we hear all
Not
these
everybody's
theories where
job.
them
Not
sure,
everybody's job.
sure, but a large amount of them, right, which are clearly going to be able to be replaced by AI, something that doesn't sleep, doesn't stop,
Yeah,
doesn't need paying, etc. But there's already loads of shortages in so many jobs, which,
such as
well, in care, in the NHS, in
yeah.
building, you know, things that I don't think can be replaced by AI. But who knows, maybe in time. But either way, AI is going to create so many jobs that it's hard to imagine what sort of jobs will exist when AI is around, because it's going to change everything in the way that the internet probably took a load of jobs initially and then opened up millions more.
Well, yeah, there it is true though, but you can see that is that the high street and town centres, 40 years ago, there it was buzzing. Everyone who used to do their shopping, they used to come into town and do their shopping. It's all done online now. If there's just coffee shops and second-hand shops, there's not a
Oh,
lot
sure.
of business. Business, high street business is fallen off the Richter scale.
Mm,
It's this is not a fallacy, Henry. It is happening. I used to build
I agree.
websites. I used to build websites and do SEO. That is completely commoditized now. There's no money in that. I was teaching my daughter how to build a website when she was 12.
Mm.
She could,
AI will do it in 5 minutes.
yeah, it's a no-brainer. If you say to anybody, 18 to 35, can you build a website? All of them will say yes. No problem. When I started in the industry, it was select. It was nothing like that at all. It was like you could demand thousands of pounds. It's not like that anymore. And AI, search, for example, people are not using the World Wide Web as they did 5 years ago. People are in the past, you would go into Google and go, you'd have a requirement, a question, a shopping need, or how do you do this? Whatever it means, you put it into Google, and Google search would bring up loads of opportunities for you. That day's gone. That isn't happening anymore. Search is decreased by 75% in the last 4 years. Everybody's using AI. Everyone goes into AI. I've got this requirement. How do I do it? And AI brings it all up. So all those, me especially, I built my website. It's got hundreds of pages on there about referencing how to do SEO and optimization and this, that, and loads of other stuff. Um, what it did is it drove up your ranking, so you became Alexa, stop. Alexa, stop. It drove up your ranking so that when people put that question into the search, then you would come up ideally on page one.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen anymore. You just use AI for that.
Hmm.
So all that time and effort that I've spent developing all that material, all that content, all those web pages on my website is dust now. It really is dust because big organizations used to have their revenue driven because they invested thousands and thousands of pounds and dollars into content so that they could rank highly in Google. And they would get 89% of their revenue from people using using Google as a search engine and driving business to it.
And how is this related
And
to
that
do we treat
and,
elderly
Yeah.
with
and
dignity?
that's all dropped out. And I'm just saying is right now there's no money to look after the elderly. So they're living a life, an undignified end to their life. And soon, what I'm saying, so we've gone down the rabbit hole. It's not going to be just the elderly. It's soon going to be the next generations that come through. Is that they're going to struggle to have um, a dignified way of living. You know,
If we accept that because we're locked into a financial system, that it means that we can't treat people with dignity. If we accept that and we go along with that, then yes, perhaps that's a future that we're looking at. But right now, we're seeing
and
the
it is, isn't it?
signs of that happening, and we've got a choice, haven't we?
No, not really, mate. We don't. The only choice that we have is that we who we vote for. And nobody out there at the moment is got the vision to
You
address those issues.
you honestly think that that's that the only power you have is to vote for those people who can convince you that uh, them having power is best for you? You honestly think that that's the
Well,
only
I think
choice you
what
have
I'm
in life?
saying is that if we want change, then as an individual, there's only a certain amount you can do. But as a society, we need to all come together, and we need a leader. And at the moment, there are no leaders out there.
I don't think we need a leader at the top. That's been a system that's been shown to not work, really, isn't it? And to lead us into a whole heap of trouble that we find ourselves in right now.
We've always had leaders, Tim. Thousands of years we've had leaders.
Yeah, I'm not saying we don't need leaders. I'm saying we don't need leaders at the top. I'm saying we need leaders. We need leadership, definitely, but that doesn't need to be at the top. We don't need a leader in America, in the United States of America, leading the whole world and making a bit of a mess of it.
We need somebody to bring the message together in order to go to the places that we want to go to.
Yes, we do.
And at the moment, there is nobody out there that's doing it.
Only
Part of that,
Jesus.
yeah, the reason for that is mainly because we're locked into a financial system that we're all reliant on and
But we're not
believe
locked
in.
into it.
You stop spending money and see how your life goes.
Yeah, and your idea that the only choice we have is to vote seems like you're locked into something if that's the case.
Sorry, the only idea,
You just said the only choice you can have is who you vote for.
yeah.
So you're locked into something if that's the case.
Well, we are locked into, well, I wouldn't like to say that we're locked. We are in a system where the only way out would be to vote for somebody because they would be, they are our leaders, and our leaders will take us to where we need to go in order to achieve the land of milk and honey. But unfortunately, there's
Yeah, that sounds like total fantasy to me.
well, that's true. Well, it is fantasy. This is my point. There isn't anybody out there that is even trying to perpetuate a dream of land of milk and honey. There's nobody out there
We're
doing it.
talking about it right now, and lots of people are. And there are people that are trying to push, an agenda that will kind of like give us a replacement system
Who?
to what we're. Lots of people.
No, no, give me one. Who heads it up?
There's lots of. Honestly, I can't think of an
No,
example.
exactly. And that's exactly my
Ah,
point.
no, no, no. That doesn't mean to say they don't exist,
No,
John, because they
they're
do.
not. They're not. If you can't think of anybody that heads it up, but just doing well in it, or who's striving for it.
No, doing well is a different question, isn't it? Because
Well, anybody. You can't name anybody.
how
There isn't
hard can it
anybody.
be
There's
flying in the
nobody.
face of a system that is hundreds and thousands of years old with leaders at the top
Mate,
telling the
there's
loyal
nobody out
subjects
there.
what to do?
There's nobody out there. You can't name anybody. And
All
I
right,
don't
I'm going to
know.
Google it and then I'll come back to
See,
you.
no, no, don't Google it.
Yeah, no, I will because I can't think of any because I don't know them because I'm not part of their networks. But
And it's not of any interest to you.
There's a lot of
No,
people striving for better, though, right?
it
Whether
is
You
it's
of
know,
interest.
oh, I want to know where this land of milk and honey is, that we're not part of this lack of this life of undignified.
some would say it's here right now. If you want to take
Yeah.
it in this very moment, John, you can start living it right now if you want to, mate. You know?
All hail to the who is it? We don't know who we're hailing to. That's my point.
I don't believe in worshiping any man.
There's nobody out there doing it, man. There really is. Because the thing is, there's the Western society is like, this is shown to be failing, and it will fail eventually. And it's going to come around sooner rather than later, in my opinion. Unfortunately, and and the socialism, they've looked at that and they've tried that for donkey's years, and it's not really worked at all, you know. So the sad, the reality, my takeaway from this conversation is that we don't treat people dignified. We're not really dignified as a species. We're greedy, um, undignified, malicious, horrible people. Yeah, honestly, we just don't give a shit about anybody. I think on a personal level we do, but when it starts eating into your food on your table or the roof over your head, you go out of your way for it to not happen. You're not interested. Dignified is not even on the agenda there. You just go out of your way to make sure it don't happen. And that's where the long and short of it really is that as long as you've got bread and water and roof over your head, you can be as dignified as you like. But as soon as that disappears, so does the dignified way. You know, people don't give a flying monkeys really about being dignified. And that's the sad thing about it is that and I can't really see a solution to it. I think that you can have these big ideas of everyone coming together and living in love, peace, and harmony, and we're on the way to the land of milk and honey. But that's a fairy dream. It ain't happening.
Well, it needs people to get on board with it, doesn't it? And I think, John, what will happen is that we will either be presented with an alternative system because the system is not working, or we can help drive a system. And I don't know. I haven't found a new hobby where I get behind one of these things yet, but maybe I will. I don't know. And maybe other people will. But there are some examples. The Seven Mountains Mandate, apparently, prosperity theology, that's a bit faith based. There's some religious based ones as well. There's New Thought and Universal Abundance.
Yeah.
There's a there are a lot of divine kind of sovereign movements that here's one as well, divine-gpms.world.
Yeah, it means a lot, doesn't it, really?
Well,
Complicated. This,
but listen to this, the idea behind this. So let's just float the idea because that's what we're here for, as well as entertainment and information. But so their idea is that everybody votes and consents to take all the assets of all the people and give a replacement system of abundance worldwide, abolish all taxes and debt. There's free travel, free home, free energy and utilities, free healthcare and food, abolish profit and loss systems and GDPs, abolish the class system. No soul is worthless, so that's everybody is worthy, honourable, ethical, as in treated with dignity, and that there's a new economy that's based on a sovereign equal value of each soul. Sounds good to me. Your value is infinite, and focusing on restoring humanity and Earth. Apparently, they've got over 400,000 sign-ups over 170 countries right now. Um, and you work 1 week in four, so 1 week every month. And so everything still runs, and we've got enough workers for our care system, for our youth systems, for our education systems, for all the systems that we've got, but we take it over and we own it all as people. Sounds good to me. That'd be a good one. I'd get on board with that.
See you later. God save mate. No.
Well,
Okay.
you asked, and I've just given you some
Yeah,
examples.
there's, I mean, the thing is, I said, couldn't name me one, and you couldn't. And it's sure there are people out there that live in a little,
There's 400,000 of them.
well, that's what they say. You don't believe everything you put on the internet, do you?
Well, 400,001 now, by the sounds of it.
Yeah, I'll go to there. So let me do an advert for them. Divine-gpms.world. Go there and vote, give your consent, sign up. Let's go.
But there's one called the humanist movement, isn't there?
I've heard of that as well, but yeah. Listen, I don't know. I'm not a Marxist. I'm not a pure socialist. I'm not anythingist. But a human being trying trapped and locked into a system that doesn't work for us collectively right now. And I'd like to see us, buck that and change that. And I don't want to be told by leaders at the top how to do that because they're making a right mess of our world and we don't care. We don't matter, rather. Their system is for profit and it's certainly not treating us with dignity. So come on, people.
Very inspiring.
Yeah,
Thank you, Henry.
well, yeah. The thing is, we make humor of it, and but I think really, unfortunately, it's not. I think I must have been in quite a pessimistic mood when I thought of that question. But I think it resonates you as you get older and you're surrounded by people. I think for me, I've looked at this and it's unfortunately it was a feeling that I had that we're not really we're just surplus to we will become surplus to requirements and we will eventually um, dissipate into, well, we'll just go and that'll be
Dust
it. And
into
that'll be,
dust. Ah, very, very positive.
yeah,
So let's wrap this up. So
right.
I think we do treat some individuals with dignity and respect that they deserve. So for basically, my parents, who are now passed, were treated with dignity, love, and respect for the 7 decades of community service that they had both together.
At a
Uh,
cost.
as teachers, as community leaders, as councillors, as mayor and mayoress of a town, as free people of a town and city. They did
Yeah,
a lot, and they
but
were
it was
they were
at a
looked
cost, wasn't
after.
it, Tim?
Shut up. I'm talking. They were treated well till their end, and they lived a good and healthy, long life, and they were very well loved, not just by us, their family, but also by the people who cared for them. But yes, it did come at a cost, John.
Yeah,
Very costly system that we have right now.
yeah.
Didn't need to be that way.
Do you think it would have been that way if they didn't have the money?
Um, yes, because there's a threshold of money, so they pay for their own care. But there's a threshold of money where if you've got less than a certain amount, the state picks that bill up, and that's what's very costly in the care system.
Right.
But they probably would have been subject to a less effective or less dignified or a cheaper model of care, perhaps.
Mm.
But that's just my parents, and thank God for that, and thank God for particularly my brother Dave, who drove that and made sure that that happened in the town that he lives in as well. So they were close to him, but we all kind of made sure that that was the case as a family. But if we'd have left them to the system, they might have had a different trajectory. And I think on the whole, we do not value people getting elderly, and we do not treat elderly with dignity and respect that they deserve,
Mm,
quite frankly.
yeah. What about you, Hen? H?
I think we could always do better, of course. You know, we've pointed out a lot of flaws in the system, the world, the way we treat each other today. I think we could have gone a little bit more into some of the positives, but it's hard to argue that, you know, there's obviously a lot of injustices. So, you know, but yeah, I don't know. I would like to make it a bit more positive somehow, but it's not been a very positive one, to be honest.
It's not.
Um,
No.
yeah, at least we're all striving for better, right? I guess that's all we can do.
Yeah, I think that says a lot for the subject though, because that's where our heads go. It's kind of like if you get old, that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, that unfortunately, there is, it would be nice to look at the positive sides, but I don't see a lot. And I think that the negatives outweigh the positives, and it's quite troubling for me, really. I think that we can all look, we're rather fortunate, we are, we're quite privileged to have come where we come from. But I can imagine there's a lot of people out there, not just in this country, but around the world, that you really have it. It's totally undignified, and it's not very. It must be really, really awful to witness that sort of undignified and to somebody that's tried so hard in their life, and to witness them just sort of disappear into sort of nothing without any sort of recognition of the efforts that they've made. I think it's very. I think that it's that outweighs the positives. Um, and yeah, I think we should do better. But it's not it's one of those markings that could do better, most definitely. And it's a fail, it's an F. I don't see it as, an A. If we were going to mark it out of 10, I'd give it a 1. I really would. Because okay, maybe in England, maybe it's a 5, or in Germany a 6, or in Norway a 7, and America a 4. But if you go to back India or Africa, it's a 2 or a 1, and that's where it's all happening. It's absolutely horrendous, and I've got a problem with that. I've got a problem with humans, period. Anyway,
And on that note,
yeah,
we'll see you for a future
yeah. On
episode.
that happy note, yeah.
Do make a comment. Let us know what you think. Thanks for watching, everyone.
Cheers. Bye bye.